Hello everybody, welcome to another Gwentcast. I'm heyimmawolf. I'm here with a slightly more educational video for you today. This is the first low MMR video that I've got, and I really wanted to talk about it because I feel like lower MMR videos have a lot of educational tools built into the gameplay. So I want to talk a little bit about the video quality first. You're going to notice it significantly worse. The video that I got came a little bit cropped at a lower resolution. So I had to crop this video, which caused some discoloration issues. And rather than trying to toy around with the settings, which wasn't really working, I'm just going to go ahead and release the video as is. And hopefully it's not too distracting. I'll have another video to come out today to make up for the fact that the quality of this video is kind of lower. But I really did want to use this video to talk about the gameplay. So we're not going to talk about card choices because we're going to see Vanilla Geralt, we're going to see Triss Marigold, stuff like that. But I want you to remember these mulligans. We're going to mulligan Roach, we're going to mulligan Reaver Scout, and then we're going to mulligan Redanian Nightelect. Why is that wrong? Let's talk about why that's wrong. If we wanted to mulligan the Reaver Scout, we had 2 in our hand, there are 3 in our deck. If you don't know what blacklisting is, it's very, very important to this game. So blacklisting is when you mulligan a card, you are guaranteed not to draw that card again in the mulligan phase. Now that has some different implications, but obviously if we're going to mulligan Reaver Scout, we don't want another one, so that needs to be the first card that we mulligan so that we don't draw the other one in our deck. The reason that we don't mulligan Roach first is because there's only 1 Roach in our deck and we lose blacklist value. There are some other implications to blacklisting, which I'm going to get to here in a little bit. If you want to know more about blacklisting, I may go ahead and release a video with some of the numbers, but for now there's a lot of information that you can find both on YouTube, on Reddit, on the Project Red forums. I'm sure that you can find something to explain blacklisting to you because I don't want this video to be too long. I like this Foltest. You lead on Foltest when you play Foltest. That's just the Foltest way. So Quen Sign, it's an okay choice. I'm going to guess that the Quen Sign went on Emperor Brigade or Emperor Enforcers. It's not super relevant because Northern Realms isn't really trying to interact with our opponent, and the shield is not going to matter too much. So let's talk about blacklisting again. This is where blacklisting comes into play, and knowing how to abuse blacklisting is very important, especially when you're playing cards like Prince Dennis. So what happens is when you blacklist a card, you're more likely to draw the cards that you mulligan. They're more likely to be on top of your deck than any other card in your deck. So when Prince Dennis pulls the top card, he is more likely to pull one of the 3 cards that you mulliganed instead of any other card in your deck. Just to put it simply. There's a little bit more to it than that. But just keep in mind that the cards that you mulligan are more likely to be on top of your deck. So what should we have done first? We had a couple options. We could have played Vanilla Geralt. We could have played Redanian Nightelect. I think I would have opted for Redanian Nightelect because what we could have done was played the Nightelect, then played Reaver Scout, and Reaver Scout would have shuffled our deck. So that gets rid of all that blacklisting that floats the cards on top of our deck. So when Reaver Scout's deployability goes off, you get to search for a unit that you have on the battlefield, shuffle your deck, and then put that unit onto the battlefield. So we could have had 2 Redanian Nightelects coming down by turn 3. And if this ends up being a long round, that is a lot of armor. That is a lot of points coming out of those Redanian Nightelects. So that's just something to keep in mind here. Because pulling this Reaver Scout was an absolute disaster. Just absolutely the worst thing that we could have pulled in our deck. It would have been okay to play Prince Dennis after we've deployed something, because if we then pull a Reaver Scout, then we can get whatever creature we played previously. So we should not have let on Prince Dennis no matter how you slice it. So we'll first see Emperor Enforcer. So I want to stop you. I know that we talked a lot here about blacklisting, but I want you to go back and remember the first Quen Sign that was played. So that Quen Sign that was played, it's probably only played on 2 things. When you play Quen Sign, you play it on your engine cards. So the engine cards for this deck are Emperor Enforcers and Emperor Brigade. Emperor Brigade is basically a reverse Emperor Enforcers. So Emperor Enforcers, whenever a spying unit enters the battlefield, on your opponent's side, you get to deal 2 damage to another unit. So, if it's not on Impera Enforcers, it's on Impera Brigade. That information is just something that you need to think about. I don't like shooting the armor off of this. I don't think there was a point to that. You could have just killed Foltest. Sometimes you don't want to kill cards against the Northern Realms player because they can resurrect them via Shani. But in this case, Foltest is doomed anyway, so just go ahead and kill that guy off. It'll help break up Thunderbolt potion synergies, etc., etc. Vanilla Geralt here, great. So let's stop here before we see what card is played by the Spies player. How many points are we ahead? 23. What are we thinking about? You should be thinking about what your next play is before this card even comes down. I want you to think about that. Just use all this time. Before this card comes down, what are you thinking about doing? Are you thinking about passing? Are you thinking about playing a 9-drop? Are you thinking about playing Redanian Knight? Redanian Knight obviously not very good against Impera Enforcers. Are you thinking about playing another Reaver Scout to help thin your deck? Which you can't do because you have not deployed any other bronzes yet, which is another issue. Okay, we haven't deployed another bronze yet, which makes our Reaver Scout dead. So, just something to think about. Let's go on. Okay, so let's stop again. What do we just see here? 2 of the engine cards of the Spies deck. Now, while the Northern Realms deck will always be a little bit weaker to the Spies deck, I want to talk about this. There are a few different decks in Gwent. Okay, so you can play all these different factions, and you can play all these different cards, but really the decks fall into a few categories where we could be playing raw points, which is what the Northern Realms deck wants to do. Doesn't want to interact with our opponent at all, doesn't want to make any Q synergies. We're just slamming these large powered bronzes onto the battlefield. Obviously, there's a little bit of synergy between armor and our heavy cavalry, but again, we're not really a synergy-based deck. We're just slamming large power on the field. A synergy-based deck is closer to this, where we're going to play these 2 cards, and they don't work by themselves. So if you played these cards and you didn't play anything else, they're not very good. Right? You play Prince Dennis, he's good by himself. You play Reaver Scout, he only needs 1 other card, and it doesn't matter what it is. It could just be like any bronze card, and he's great. So look at all these cards that you have that don't really need other cards, other specific cards to be synergistic. Okay, so they're not playing raw points. This is just a vanilla 6. This is just a vanilla 6. If we talk about the cards in a vacuum. So what this spy deck wants to do is it wants to abuse its synergies. So if we can somehow break up the synergies by either removing these cards or passing, which we'll talk about a little bit later, you'll have a much easier time as the Northern Realms player. So I want to see what you opt to play here. Heavy Cavalry is fine. We're going to take 5 armor off of that Reaver Scout. That's the best value we're going to get. We're just going to play a 14-point bronze. Now stop! Let's stop again. We have a huge differential here. Huge score differential. What are you thinking about doing now? Are you thinking about passing? If you're not thinking about passing, you should be. Does not matter what he plays here. We want to try to break up these synergies. He's committed a gold. You've also committed a gold. That's something to think about, okay? So you're at least even on that. We'll see what he pulls off here. He pulls Fringilla. I'm interested to see where this Fringilla goes. It should go between Reaver Scout and Geralt, because it'll set Geralt at a 2. I think that she does not ignore golds. Okay, yep. She would set Geralt's power to 2. So we'll see where Fringilla goes. Fringilla giving us 2 points. 3 points if you count the Fringilla, which we will immediately lose to the Brigade and the Spy anyway, but he could have gained like 10 points here. So this is fine. We're just playing our basic vanilla 9. Not a problem. But again, look here. Look how many points we are ahead. We are 31 points ahead. That's nuts. That's nuts. So what did we talk about earlier? What are ways that we can use to break up these synergies? Whoa, this is even more commitment coming from the Spies player. You're never going to beat the Spies player if he's committing all this stuff in a single round. Okay? Let's stop. When When the Spies player plays 3 of his engine cards and his finisher, what do we have left to fight him? Nothing. Our deck doesn't do that. The Northern Realms deck is not built to beat a deck that synergizes over time. The longer you play this round, it's just like weather, right? You don't want to play long rounds against weather. It's the same thing. They're getting 2 points a turn every time they play a spy. 6 because they have 3 of these units on the field. So what did we talk about? Ways to break them up. We can remove the units or we can pass. If we pass here, we're in really good shape. We obviously don't want to have to pass if we're behind in cards. But look at this. After this trigger goes off, we're ahead. You could just pass back here, and you've now broken this up. How many threats? I want you to think about your opponent's deck. And you might be new at the game, but I want you to think about how many threats your opponent has left in their deck. 3. The answer is 3. They have 1 brigade, 2 enforcers left. And on top of that, their synergy cards with their brigade and enforcers are running out. They're running out of emissaries. They've committed 3 spies to the board already. Joachim, their big finisher, has already been committed to the board. Why are you trying to fight it with a 7-powered unit that's basically a vanilla 7 because he can destroy the 2 armor with his Impera enforcers? So in the description, Flipsy wrote that he's having a little bit of trouble with this matchup, and here's why. Why are you continuing to play this game? You could have passed instead of playing this card, and your opponent would have had to go down a card to win the round, and would have lost more than half of their finishers. So if we break up synergies via a passing of the round, you just split them in half. That's more than enough. Look at all the stuff he's committing. Look at all these cards that he's committing. He's committed an assassin. He's committing a second emissary. He's committing his leader. He's probably going to take the lead here, but go ahead and just pass, right? At least we're even. This is another fine opportunity to pass. We missed our opportunity to pass while we were ahead a card, but that's okay. We could go ahead and pass here. How are we going to catch up? Look at this. We're 11 points behind. Are we ever going to catch up with a deck 11 points behind that's making at least 6 a turn? Generally speaking. They're making minimum 6 a turn. We're not. None of the cards in our hand do that. So what's another reason that we should have passed around? Prince Dennis and Shani. Our Shani is dead right now. There's nothing that we can get off for that's worthwhile. What we want to get off of Shani ideally is Prince Dennis. How do we get Prince Dennis in the graveyard? We pass the turn. There's nothing wrong with losing round 1. Don't fight so hard. Your deck is so powerful across all 3 rounds. Take them into 3 rounds. Let them take you into 3 rounds. There are very few decks that can just sustain a power band across 3 rounds. So if you think about it in terms of a graph, the Spies deck is going to have spikes. So in this case, it would have a huge power spike in round 1, a little smaller in round 2, much, much smaller in round 3. Your deck is just flat across the middle. Okay? So that's just something to think about. And this video is about to end, so I think that you concede the game. And I want you to know that that game was completely winnable if we go back and we look at some of these plays where your opponent is just up and running and you're not doing anything to break up their synergies. Keep this in mind, here's a rule of thumb for you. If you cannot break up the synergies of the synergy deck with your cards, you need to pass the turn. Milk as much as you can out of them, as much as you can without losing round 2. Keep enough cards in your hand to combo with round 2. You could play your basic vanilla 9 drop here or whatever if you want to draw another card out of them. But keep in mind that if we just played Shani and we just played Heavy Cavalry, how many cards or how many points did we just put on the battlefield? 19? Something like that? If Shani resurrects nothing. Okay? So keep that in mind. There's no 2 cards that Nilfgaard has outside of some really high-powered silvers and golds, but even then, that's going to make 19 points. Or 2 cards, okay? So just keep that in mind. Your deck has a lot of raw power. Feel free to abuse that. That's your strength. Play to your strengths. So that's really all I have to say about this game. Hopefully I was clear. This is my first time making an educational video. If you liked it, please let me know in the comments. I could use all the feedback I can get at this point. If you have a video that you would like to submit, I am still accepting videos. I definitely need games to cast. You can send them over to heyimmawolf at gmail or heyimmawolfgwent at gmail.com. If you are unsure how to make a video, you can go ahead and watch one of my last video, I think my last uploaded video, and you can see how to record a game and upload that to YouTube. Anyway, I'm done. This is Heyimmawolf signing off.